I call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the Village Board on Monday, March 16th at 7 p.m. in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all Village Board members present except for Trustee Myers, who is excused. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is President's Report. A couple things to report tonight, but first we'll start with some information from our Village Clerk, Deanna.
Yes, I would just like to encourage voters to request an absentee ballot, and they can make that request for the April 7th election by going on to myvote.wi.gov. We do have information on our village website. We have information on Facebook and Nextdoor on how registered voters can make that request. And already we have over 800 absentee ballot requests to be mailed out. Tomorrow, our in-person absentee voting starts here in the office. We do have extended hours from 7:30 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays prior to the election. And then we also have Saturday voting available to voters as well. So the April 7th election, as far as I know, will continue, and that has not been postponed.
All right, thank you. Next item under President's Report, I have a letter from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. It says, Dear Dean, congratulations. The Village of Germantown Holy Hill Road Project has been recommended for funding and approved by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Secretary's Office. This letter confirms funding for the Village of Germantown Holy Hill Road Project from the 2020 through 2021 Multimodal Local Supplement Program. The program is a one-time funding initiative of $75 million for multimodal local system transportation projects that have been demonstrated as impact on the local unit of the government's economy. MLS is a reimbursement program administered by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation that assists local units of government in improving roads, bridges, harbors, railroads, transit services, and bicycle pedestrian accommodations by paying a percentage of eligible project costs with the balance matched by the sponsoring local unit of government. MLS award recommendations are made by committee comprised of local officials that evaluate the applications and ensure that state funds go to projects that directly benefit local communities. With over 1,600 MLS applications submitted and over $1 billion in grant requests, the MLS committee sought to answer this sizable demand by funding as many projects as possible by adjusting awarded funding percentages. Your project was one of 34 city-village MLS projects selected for funding by the Multimodal Local Supplement City-Village Committee in the 2020 through 2021 biennium. The total eligible cost associated with the project is $4,739,800, and Wisconsin Department of Transportation will reimburse the Village of Germantown up to 21% of the project's total cost to a limit of $1 million. Thank you for your commitment to providing the quality transportation system that fosters economic growth, regional connectivity, and cost effectiveness while ensuring public safety. As a state and local partnership, we are working together to improve our transportation infrastructure. You will soon receive a state municipal project agreement from Wisconsin Department of Transportation, which must be signed and returned prior to incurring the project cost. If you have any questions, please contact Department of Transportation at the following information and telephone numbers. So basically, we've been received a grant of $1 million to help fund some of the road improvements that are happening out at the Holy Hill Road and the development that's happening out there along the interstate. So thank you, Larry, for your department for going for the grant, and congratulations on receiving approval of this grant. That's all I have for President's Report, so we can go to announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports, starting with committee reports and committee chairs, starting with Trustee Zabel.
General Government and Finance met earlier tonight, and we'll meet again on April 20th at 6 p.m. in this room.
All right, thank you. Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room on April 7th, which is a Tuesday, at 6 p.m.
All right, thank you. Trustee Hughes.
Public Safety's next meeting is the 6th of next month at 6 o'clock in this boardroom.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Zabel.
I should point out, later tonight, we go with the emergency resolution for the virus, and as part of that, if things do get worse, the meetings may not be here, but may be actually have to be video televised or other means occurring in the future. We're not 100% positive yet until everything clears. So this, in case, stay posted on the website as things are happening.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else or anyone else have any announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Seeing there are none others, we'll go to citizen input and public appearance on items not subject to a public hearing. There is one public hearing on tonight's agenda. But if there is anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward for citizen input or public appearance, you're welcome to do so at this time. Just as a matter of information, we have chosen to remove item C, which is the ordinance for the rezoning of A2 agricultural to RS4 single-family residential zoning district for the 16-lot residential development for Viridian Homes from tonight's agenda based on recommendation of the amount of people that would have been in the room as a result of that. So it's been removed and will be put on a future agenda. So be checking the website, and we'll put out information when it's decided which meeting it will be placed on next. But it is not on tonight's meeting. If anyone is here to give comment to that, you're welcome to do so, but it may be better on the night that it's actually part of the village board agenda, but that is totally up to you. If anybody else is in the audience that would like to come forward for citizen input and public appearance, you're welcome to do so. All I would ask is you come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record. Anyone wishing to come forward? All right, then we'll go on to consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through I.
Second.
When we get to new business. Okay, I can do that. Motion made and seconded to approve consent agenda items A through I. Any discussion on that motion to approve? No discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Hughes?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky?
Aye.
Trustee Warren?
Aye.
Trustee Wing?
Aye.
Trustee Zabel? President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
With the board's approval, I would like to go back a little bit to President's Report and just add an item. Does anyone have any objection to me going back to President's Report? The item that I would like
Probably citizens input is
better served?
where it probably goes, yeah.
Okay, I can do that. All right, then we're going to go back to citizens input. And part of the citizen input is an email that we had received earlier today. It's from Matt Cudney, and he is the Vice President of Operations for Viridian Homes, Vice President of the operations in the Milwaukee area. And his email states, per the information posted on the village website, I request the following to be read in the public comment portion of the meeting tonight. I am objecting to the new business item C, ordinance 05-2020 being removed from the agenda village board meeting tonight. We were informed of this at 3:21 p.m. this afternoon. This item was properly noticed, and I do not believe it can be removed without the consent of the applicant. There is no public hearing scheduled. That was held last week. Any public comment could have been handled through the village clerk as indicated on the village website. There has been considerable previous discussion on the proposed rezoning, and no new objections were raised during the actual public hearing last week. I strongly disagree with the delaying of the vote and respectfully request the village reschedule and vote on this item as soon as possible, even if it requires a special meeting. Thank you, Matt Cudney, Vice President of Operations Milwaukee, for Veridian Homes. Takes care of citizen input, public appearance. We have consent agenda taken care of. That then takes us down to our public hearings listed on tonight's agenda. We do have one public hearing. Item A, resolution to discontinue a portion of the 66-foot public road dedication shown on CSM number 455 located north of County Line Road, approximately 640 feet east of Fond du Lac Avenue, and this is requested by Waste Management of Wisconsin. To give us some more background and information on this, we have the Director of Public Works, Larry Ratachik.
Thank you, President. The vacating of the right-of-way is requested by Waste Management. The site is on Highway Q, just east of 145. This is incorporated with the construction of the new maintenance facility that's been approved by the Plan Commission. Give you a location of it. The blue stripe is the the parts to be vacated. So Waste Management has approvals granted in March of 2019 for the new maintenance facility. The conditional use permit is approved, the site plan, and the CSM. CSM approval requires a 66-foot of the unused right-of-way to be discontinued or vacated by the village board. Right-of-way parcel was dedicated back in 1971 by CSM 455 in anticipation of a future road. This is the approved CSM, and again, the blue triangle at the bottom is the section of right-of-way that would be vacated. A little closer shot of what's to be vacated. It goes, the intention, the right-of-way is, there's no way for that roadway to be extended to the north. Not really sure why that right-of-way was dedicated in the first place. We couldn't determine that. So our comments are that the parcel is not needed for village road right-of-way. The excess right-of-way parcel to be vacated requires formal board approval, which we're here for tonight. Leading up to this point, we had a resolution, a preliminary resolution at the village board to allow us to go through to this point. We just finished a Class 3 notification, which required 3 weeks of notification in public newspaper, legal advertising newspaper. We've gone through that, and we're here tonight to present to the board for the approval of Resolution 24-2020 for the vacating of the right-of-way. That's it.
All right, thank you. Then I would open this public hearing by hereby stating on Monday, March 16th, 2020 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, as a matter may be heard, the village board of the Village of Germantown will address proposed resolution discontinuing the 66-foot public right-of-way reservation shown on certified survey map number 455. The requested discontinuance is requested by Waste Management of Wisconsin. The area to be vacated is located adjacent to the east property line of the existing waste management facility located at North 96, West 13840, County Line Road. Is there anyone wishing to come forward to speak for or against the discontinuing of the 66-foot public road right-of-way reservation as shown on the certified survey map? Anyone wishing to come forward to speak for or against? One last time, is there anyone wishing to come forward to speak for or against the discontinuing of the 66-foot public road right-of-way reservation as shown on certified survey map number 455? Then this public hearing is now closed. That takes us then to a new business, starting with new business resolution, or item A, resolution 24-2020, discontinuing a portion of the 66-foot public road dedication shown on certified survey map number 455, located north of County Line Road, approximately 640 feet east of Fond du Lac Avenue, as requested by Waste Management of Wisconsin.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24-2020 to discontinue the 66-foot right-of-way as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Next item under new business is item B, certified survey map lot combination for Stephen and Elizabeth Green, located at North 116, West 16033, and North 116, West 16011, Main Street.
Make a motion to approve the certified survey map for Stephen and Elizabeth Green as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Trustee Zabel? Yes. Right. By that combination. Any further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Green, for coming. Next item under new business is item D, animal fancier license, Sherry and Robert Cardy, located at West 154, North 10230, Regency Court in Germantown.
Make a motion to approve the animal fancier's license for Sherry and Robert Cardy as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We do have several emails that we had received in regards to the fancier license. One we had received from Marilee Glover Kalinsky. Says we have no objections to Sherry and Robert Cardy's animal fancier's license based on the information you kindly provided to us. And then it's signed by Marilee and Kim Kalinsky. We have another one from Todd Pop, to whom it may concern. We just learned additional details regarding the license application and now support its approval. And that was from Todd Pop. We also have one from a Dick Means and Mary McCollum. First off, we wish to object to the animal fancier's license for Sherry and Robert Cardy. We understand the animal fancier's license allows for more than 3 dogs or cats or combination thereof per the written notice received. I called the village clerk's office upon receiving notice and understand this license is for 3 pets or more with no limitations to how many pets a person can have. So while a person may want to have 4 pets today, tomorrow they may want to have 10, and they will have the license to support this. To this point, we cannot support this license. Bob is actually the president of our subdivision association and has everyone's email. To apply for a license like this, I would have expected Bob to have sent out a notice explaining their intentions. However, no communications were made. Some information about how they purchased their home nearly 4 years ago with the thought of enjoying peaceful neighborhood. They acquired a dog last summer. While 2 of the dogs are relatively quiet, one of their original dogs barks continuously when let out on the yard leash or when they take it for a walk. This dog is particularly annoying, so it becomes hard for us to allow more than 3 dogs. Bob and Sherry do not seem to recognize this as an issue. As it continues, we'd like to sleep with the windows open in the summer when the temperature allows for this, but we are to be woken up at 5:30 by this barking dog, and it is not pleasing to sit out on our patio at night and listen to the dog barking, which ruins the peace and quiet we wish to enjoy. To this point, we have difficulty supporting additional pets at our neighbors. Sincerely, Dick Mains and Mary McCollum. Those are the 3 that we had received.
Correct.
Further discussion on a motion to approve. Trustee Zabel?
Is it correct that there is no limitation put on the amount of dogs that can be there?
They list them on the actual application, so every year it comes forward to public safety on that list.
So the license is for those that are listed only for this year? They would have to re-up or reapply next year, or if they would add anything, I think throughout the year.
So they could add, but again, it would have to go through public safety, and they could not add until the new license became effective.
Correct, and they would also have to have those dogs licensed. They'd have to have a dog license as well.
And the vets and all the shots and everything that's required?
Correct.
Further discussion?
Just for clarification, notices went out to the neighbors, right?
Correct.
In what kind of radius?
I would have to look at it.
Yeah, but pretty much everybody next door to them got a letter
received a letter in the mail. Yeah,
And we have one objection,
correct.
Out of the 3 received, yes.
well, out of all the invitations, or all the notices, we have one objection.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
1 opposed. Motion passes. Next item under new business is item E, Resolution 25-2020, Memorandum of Understanding, Village of Germantown and Village of Richfield relating to the exploration of the extension of water and sewer utilities from Germantown to Richfield along Holy Hill Road. To give us some more information and background on this, I'll turn the meeting over to our village administrator, Steve Krecklow.
Thank you. Several weeks ago, we had a discussion here at the village board regarding the potential of the village of Germantown providing sewer and water service to a portion of the village of Richfield right across Highway 41 along Holy Hill Road. And at that point, there were several questions that the village board asked, technical questions, policy questions, financial questions, legal questions. Based on that discussion, the village attorney and I met with the village administrator and the village attorney from the village of Richfield, and had a conversation about how to proceed to be able to answer those questions. And the results of those conversations is the MOU that you have before you today. If the village board were to approve this MOU, it would authorize the Village of Germantown staff and to work with the Village of Richfield staff and consultants to provide additional analysis of that potential partnership in terms of sewer and water. And specifically, and if you want to refer to the document itself, there's a series of municipal responsibilities that are listed within there. The agreement would indicate that we're going to work jointly in looking into the feasibility of providing those utility services, including engineering and technical studies, review, legal and regulatory analysis, both in terms of the Public Service Commission, Sewer PAC, and MMSD, financial analysis, and looking at potentially cooperative zoning and economic development. The Village of Richfield, as part of this MOU, would agree to taking on the cost and the responsibility for drafting those documents and hiring consultants who would be necessary to put that information together. We would be taking on the responsibility to review those documents that were brought in primarily with staff resources. There also are agreements in here that Richfield would provide information, any information that's subject to Wisconsin Open Records on previous engineering or planning that had been done, and we would do the same in concurrence for the Village of Richfield. We also would agree in this MOU that both villages would work with Economic Development Washington County to develop a set of mutually agreeable framework for financial incentives for economic development in the area, if any, to provide sort of a level playing field as we had discussed in the previous meeting, as well as looking at mutually beneficial zoning and land use planning. So there's a lot covered here, a lot of work that would have to be done. I think the way to look at this is that if there is a level of interest in exploring this as an idea, and seeing if those questions or concerns that were raised can be answered and resolved, then I would recommend moving forward with this MOU as a way to accomplish that. My expectation would be that if this is approved by both village boards during this month, that then we would begin work and likely at some point this summer come back with some reports and additional information for both the Village of Richfield's Village Board and the Village of Germantown's Village Board on the feasibility and potential benefits of moving forward with an agreement.
Questions? Comments? Trustee Zabel?
On top of Trump, has the Village of Richfield looked at this, or have they done anything with it yet?
The village administrator and village attorney have looked at this. I believe that they've been working closely with the village president from the Village of Richfield. They have not presented this yet to their village board. I believe that they're planning to at the earliest opportunity.
Yeah, because when I look at G&H under the responsibilities, where you, if I remember, one of the main concerns is that making sure that there's some control over the landing and plan use. Understanding the way Southeast Regional plans and economic development likes to make growth, I really would have a lot of problems, and I don't see where it guarantees us any type of say in what can possibly be developed in Richfield.
So the first thing to just keep in mind is that this agreement is really nothing more than the agreement that gives staff the go-ahead to begin having the discussions to work out that framework. There's nothing, before we would get into a point where we provide any service to Richfield, there would be a formal agreement to do that before you. That would include cost sharing, all of the things that are basically identified in those responsibilities. So your cost sharing, your various planning, attempts to have coordinated efforts in that regard. All of those things would be part of that agreement to be brought forward. Really, what is before you is the agreement that is designed to give staff that authority to go ahead and negotiate and explore whether this is even something that's going to work or not.
I just would like it written clearer that our main concern is what gets developed and how it affects any development within Germantown. And I don't see if that's coming through clear to the people in Richfield or the people here with G&H.
That would be next step.
Yeah, but then once you start these steps, these little baby steps, all of a sudden ends up in one giant step, and we're there and we got the paperwork in front of us.
You're basically approving an agreement to talk about agreeing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the fact that Richfield has basically shut down itself and is not going to have any meetings till the middle of April, I don't even know where to go or why even to bother to look at it now. I just have a problem with it. I don't think it's clear enough and worded enough to the Village of Richfield. Just my opinion.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Germantown and Richfield as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Kaminsky.
It can't hurt to talk. I mean, this does not commit us to anything. And I kind of would be interested to see what their plans are for that intersection, because it's going to potentially benefit both communities if it's done correctly. And to get something done correctly, you must work cooperatively. So I personally would have no problem with the exploratory, which is all I see this as.
Further discussion. No further discussion? I think Trustee Kaminsky has hit the nail on the head in regards to an overview of what's before us. It's not an agreement in detail. I think those are the next steps. It's merely allowing our staff to talk with their staff to start to put those details together. I'm willing to look at it, discuss it, see if there are advantages for Germantown, to understand what possible advantages there are for Richfield, and make sure that that we come and have the control that we're looking for in regards to sewer and water going over there, and come to an agreement as to what kind of development will happen on both sides of the freeway in that area, one that benefits both and is not redundant nor competitive to one another. That's what I'm looking forward to. But right now, it's a discussion and more learning, so that's what I'm looking to see happen first, is to learn more about this and have an open discussion, and then at that time, once we have other details, we can hammer those down and decide if this makes sense for us. Any further discussion? No further discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Trustee Baum? Trustee Kaminsky? Trustee Hughes? Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Warren? Trustee Wing? Trustee Zabel?
Aye.
President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item under new business is item F, declaring a public health emergency in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus. More information on the resolution before us. I'll turn it back over to Village Administrator.
Before we get into the specifics of the resolution, I did put together just a little bit of background information for both the board and the public about some of the activities from the last few days. And I guess I would preface it by saying that, the information has been, I may have to get up over by the podium and advance the slides. Things have been moving very quickly the last several days.
Is that mic on?
You can see, it was just actually 5 days ago.
Jeff, is that mic on?
When the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. Shortly after that, President Trump declared a national emergency, and Governor Evers declared a public. What we learned last Friday that Washington County declared a public health state of emergency, and then Friday afternoon, all department heads came in and we went through a village program to determine how this is working. I'll go back to my regular microphone. To determine what actions, if any, the village needed to take. And I think as we had a conversation on that, there's a lot of conflicting information and a lot of different opinions on the severity or how this will all play out. So the way that we've been approaching it as a team of department heads is like we would a snowstorm. And, there oftentimes when there's snow coming in, there may be wide ranges of what the forecast is. Different opinions on whether we'll get 14 inches or 2 inches of snow, but whatever it is, we prepare for it, and we do the best of making sure that the best that we can to make sure that we respond adequately. So some of the initial steps that took place, first related to rec programs, senior center and library. The library closed as of 5 p.m. on Friday. Since then, they did work out a system over the weekend where they're able to take online holds for books and contact those individuals, and they can pick up those books without entering into the library, so that we're not congregating or having large groups of people in the library in that case. So there is some library service going on, even though the library itself is closed. Kids Club and recreation programs were canceled until further notice. The senior center is closed, and today the county announced that they were not going to be providing on-site meals, only meal by delivery. So at this point, all activities within the senior center are closed. When those announcements were made and have been made, and at this point we're indicating tentatively those things could resume as of April 13th. However, last night with CDC issuing an 8-week moratorium on meetings, it looks probably unlikely that on April 13th those activities will be able to resume. hopefully things improve and they will be able to resume. The second category in our first responders, and actually, even before the events of the last couple of weeks, the fire department and the police department both took steps to increase the safety precautions, the protocols to keep our first responders healthy. We do have adequate supplies available for personal protective equipment that's necessary. We're monitoring that, but at this point, we have enough. And I think one of the big concerns that we need to keep on top of is making sure that we keep our police officers and our firefighters healthy and on the job. Village Hall is continuing at this point current office hours and operations. The April election we're continuing work as planned. We're also, as you heard at the beginning of this meeting, encouraging absentee voting by mail. I think that that's the best way that people can, ensure their health and as well as health of others who in Village Hall and other people are coming in to vote. If people do this by mail, it will help to prevent the spread of the disease. We have also implemented extra cleaning protocol. We're trying to clean everything that doesn't move. And some things that do, to try to make sure that we're providing as good an environment as possible. The village clerk has also been working on some contingency plans for the April election. One of the issues out there is going to be staffing. A lot of our, in fact, the majority of our poll workers are in the age groups that seem to be most affected by COVID-19. So that's something that we're trying to put some contingency plans in place like that. Public Works and the utilities are continuing to be run operationally. We're trying to make sure that we keep our employees healthy. That's, I think, one of the greatest concerns that we have when we're kind of contingency planning is that if this works its way through our employees, making sure that we have enough people who are able to come to work and be on duty to keep the village up and running. Just a highlight of some of the ongoing questions and concerns. You do have the resolution that the village attorney prepared with a declaration of a village health emergency. Secondly, the first responders and keeping them healthy. They're out there, going into homes, providing medical treatment, responding to emergency situations, and putting themselves at risk. And in addition to their own health, when one of those first responders is exposed to the disease, they're subject to quarantine as well. And so that's one of the big concerns that we have is making sure that we take whatever steps we can to keep them healthy and on the job. Election staffing, we talked about, that's an issue not only at the Village of Germantown. Shortly before the meeting started tonight, I was on a statewide conference call with the League of Municipalities, and everyone is questioning how, our ability to carry out the election that's scheduled April 7th. And there's concerns about that, and the state is looking at ways to try to address those concerns. We're continuing to monitor Village Hall operations and DPW operations. At this point, we haven't put in any changes in terms of hours or functions, but that is something that we're monitoring. We're working through questions about adverse impacts on employees, library employees, recreation program employees. If these program closures continue on for a longer period of time, we'll need to make some decisions about, like a lot of private sector businesses are facing right now, how do we take care of those employees? How do we handle those situations? We're also looking at the impact of some recently, I guess, I'm not sure if it's been signed today yet and enacted, but the federal HR 6201, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which does place some additional obligations on employers in terms of sick leave, some additional FMLA opportunities for employees. So we're reviewing that information and trying to determine what all of the impacts are. As we learned today, some of the guidelines that are coming out and changing on almost a daily basis affect our public meetings. The latest guidance that came out from the president said 10 people, which we can't even get all of the trustees and staff with 10 people. So I know the village attorney has some thoughts on some meeting protocols that we may want to adjust as part of that. And then finally, we do have a bond sale scheduled for the first meeting in April. And I did receive an email from our financial advisor just, indicating it's a very uncertain time in financial markets. We're on some unprecedented types of issues here, and how that's going to impact financial markets over the next couple of weeks remains to be determined. But we're in contact with them. We're monitoring the financial markets continuously, and we'll adjust accordingly, any actions that might be necessary before that bond sale comes up. So with that, I think it's, unless there are any questions or comments, then I think the next step would be to talk a little bit more about the resolution that was prepared.
Any questions? I think the outline does an excellent job on summarizing what's happened since Friday and what the plan is going forward. So thank you for putting it together. It makes it easy to understand and is very clear in what's happening going forward.
All right. So moving then on to the second part of the discussion or issues this evening is the resolution that is before you. I did place a copy in front of you all on the days this evening when I arrived. Part of that is because I've made changes since the first version that I sent the village clerk. And if any of you happen to see the first version, I wanted to get the kind of most current version to you. In short, the statutes authorize the village to declare an emergency that exists within the village. The current response to COVID-19 certainly appears to qualify as one of the conditions that could result in the emergency declaration. As communities have been looking at this issue, I will tell you that the initial thought was we'll do declarations if for no other reason than when we have federal funding that may or may not exist for disaster relief, that the declaration may be a requirement in order for us to do that. And so the kind of initial thought was this is a way for us to accomplish that, maybe nothing more. As we have worked almost tirelessly through the weekend and then today, as new issues come up, as federal guidance changes in terms of how many people you can have at meetings and all of that kind of stuff, the form of the resolution changed a bit in the sense that we are actually doing some substantive things in this particular resolution as well. Those two items are within the resolution on the second page. And I'm going to draw your attention to both paragraph 7 and paragraph 8. Paragraph 7, in short, appoints the village president to be the chief executive officer of the village. Interestingly, when it comes to cities, the mayor is by statute the chief executive officer. In villages, there is no such declaration as it relates to the village president. And in fact, the league's handbook on government operations just simply says that the village board is the chief executive officer. That works in most cases. It does not necessarily work in issues of emergencies because there are some instances where the chief executive officer, as you see in sub B on the screen in front of you, has the ability by proclamation to take certain powers that may be necessary. And that if the village board would not be able to meet in a timely method in order to address those needs or concerns, that the chief executive officer then can issue a proclamation that says this is what we're going to do. The village board subsequently then ratifies that action at a meeting when they are able to meet. Things that have been discussed today as it relates to that exercise of power include things like we have a number of members that have, for one way or another, been exposed to the disease and are now quarantined and cannot meet. How do we then do things like pay our invoices and pay, and approve salaries and make sure our employees get paid, those types of things, all the way up to, much more, significant things that if there, needed to be, some sort of curfew order that was put in place, or something along those lines. Now, likely those types of concerns are going to come from the state or the federal government, and we don't have much of a role there, but there are lots of things that you could anticipate may need to take place immediately before we would be able to schedule a meeting. So this paragraph appoints the president to be that chief executive officer, and then in his absence, it becomes, we just go in line based on seniority at the village board level. So whoever's been in office the longest becomes the next in line, and so forth. And so that is one thing that this particular resolution does that the original version did not, and in fact some of the other resolutions that other communities have already adopted had not done, because these are new things that have kind of come up. The second one is under 8, and Mr. Krecklow kind of hinted at that one a little bit as part of his presentation as well, which is, we saw a little bit of that as we were looking to how do we deal with the new guidance that says no more than 10 people, or based on the current order that no more than 50 people can be in a room at a public gathering. And how do we deal with that when we have citizens that otherwise under the open meetings law need to be here and have the right to be present and do those types of things. The Attorney General's office issued guidance today. That guidance, in my opinion, was not all that helpful, but it did, in short, remind folks that in their mind, in all cases, that the ability to telephone into a meeting or to video conference into a meeting may be a permissible action that takes place. I do not agree with that. It kind of base conclusion that we can do that at any time. I've said as much, most recently with what's the tax increment board? The Joint Review Board. Thank you. That we had one of the members that wanted to phone in because they do it in all of the other communities that MATC governs, and my opinion there was no, that you can't do that on my reading of the statute. But that said, I do think that the emergency powers provided for in Chapter 323 do allow us to effectively implement what the Attorney General otherwise suggests. And so paragraph 8 is the paragraph that does that, which in short allows for the government, meaning you guys, to hold a meeting where we may have one or more of you calling in because, for example, not to pick on my friend at the end here, but you have somebody that is very much within the most at risk from this particular disease, and he may not feel comfortable coming to meetings as part of continuing operations as this thing maybe ramps up over the next couple of weeks. So it would maybe allow him to phone into that meeting in order to participate and take part of that meeting to make sure that government still works. If we get to the point where it becomes even worse, it would likewise authorize us to establish maybe some sort of online type meeting, through a Zoom meeting or a GoToMeeting or something like that. All of this provided that we figure out a way to make sure that that meeting is nonetheless broadcast out to the public so that they can see what it is that we are doing. We don't want to obviously hide the activities and the actions of the body. By doing that, we would simply, as a result of this resolution, effectively require public comment to take place in either written or verbal communications with the clerk's office, who would then convey that to the board as part of that process. It is clearly not the ideal circumstance. Clearly, I think all of us would prefer to have everybody here in the room and free to interact and partake. But in light of the very real dangers that exist as a result of COVID-19, they are steps that I think are appropriate and necessary in order to ensure the continuing operations of government as we work over the next couple weeks to maybe longer of dealing with the impacts. So those are the big things. I will note that the eagle eyes among you may have noticed that at the bottom is number 5 again. The clerk already has a version that is correct and lists that as number 9.
Questions? No questions? Trustee Sable?
Yeah, I don't have much of a problem with this, but the only thing that I can see is that if you have a public hearing where you may be affecting a lot of people, some of our public hearings have little or nobody show up. But if you have a public hearing that's going to come for a zoning change and it affects 100 people, 200 people, you're going to only require them that the comments would have to come into the board, or would you not schedule public hearings until everything's clear?
No, it is my opinion that, and I think the Attorney General would agree, that where public input is specifically required, i.e. a public hearing type circumstance, that you cannot do that without having physical public access to that meeting. And so for most items, the answer is that we would just not hold public hearings. Those items would be stayed while we deal with that. Now, I'm not going to pretend that that's always going to be the case. There may be something for which we need a public hearing, for which we're going to have to figure out a way to make that work. I don't know what that is yet, and there are some proposals. I know the League is actively trying to lobby the governor's office to relax some of the rules with respect to some of the open meetings requirements as well. And so, the answer long-term is we'll see. There's going to be lots that changes, but at least in the short term and initially, the idea is that we would look to suspend things that would require public hearings, that it would be just the regular public.
I'm not sure if we have any public hearing notices that have already been posted.
Wait,
I believe that we do. There have been some submissions that were planned for the April Plan Commission, and there is a 30-day notification. So I believe we do have some public hearing notices that are out there. And as the village attorney was saying in the conference call this afternoon at the League of Municipalities, they're trying to ask the governor's office for some way of reconciling. Can't have more than 50 people in a room at one time, but have to have a public hearing on certain issues. If those are not resolved, I mean, we do not, because we noticed we do not have to have the public hearing, we could cancel it, and that may be what we end up doing with those.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. And especially now, if you know of something that may be coming up in the near future, that would require a 30-day notice. Maybe put them on notice too, that because of this, we may have to put everything off for 60 days or 90 days until all this clears up.
Yeah, I mean, the trick is that the situation is so fluid that it at some points today, it felt like it was changing by the minute. And in some respects, it was. And so, it's hard to make any predictions past, as we sit here right now, in terms of what's going on. I believe that the language that's there gives us the best chance to, with as little hopefully headaches and hiccups as may exist, gives us the most realistic chance of continuing to operate as we need to, while protecting both the public and even you folks yourselves, in terms of your health and everything else. So.
Is the number for this resolution 26, 2020?
No, it would be 27. It would be
27?
27, 20.
I'd put on the floor the motion to accept the resolution 27, 2020, the resolution declaring a public health emergency in response to the virus.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Baum.
Specifically, can you tell me how we're going to handle Veridian Homes? It's not required to have a public hearing.
Public
But-
hearing has already occurred on Veridian Homes in
Right.
regards to the Plan Commission.
But numerous people wanted to be here for that.
Right.
What do I tell them tomorrow when they start calling me?
I think that the honest answer is that at this point, we are still looking to figure out the best way to address that. And that in light of the kind of very rapidly changing things, we may not have an immediate answer. The gut initial thought, however, is that it will be scheduled at a coming meeting. Now, whether that is the first meeting in April or if we would look at some meeting subsequently thereafter, we will do that, even if it means that they will not be able to physically be present and instead will be required to provide written comments or verbal comments through the clerk's office in order to convey their point of view. It is admittedly a bit of a balancing act between trying to make sure that the public otherwise feels that they have had their due involvement in the process, with the very real aspect of we just got to get our business done, and our business includes approving applications that are before us. So that's the initial thought, and obviously that then gives those folks notice and time that they're able to submit those comments. And to do that, that is quite honestly one of the reasons why we ended up pulling the item from the agenda this evening, was with the revised guidance of 10 people. While we had nonetheless been telling folks, if you don't feel comfortable coming, feel free to submit in writing and we'll convey that. People didn't have that notice. They didn't know. And we didn't want to be in a position where if they showed up and we were telling them, no, there's too many people in this room, we're going to, either shut down the room or leave some people out or whatever the case may be, that didn't seem true and fair to what would be a good process either. And so there will be a process, but I think we're going to probably wait a little bit just to see how some of these things that are kind of actively in flux play out a little bit before we make a for sure determination as to how this is going to play out.
Thank you.
Further discussion? There's no doubt we are in unprecedented territory, and as the village attorney and village administrator had stated, it changes quickly, and I think they've done an excellent job in preparing us with the information that they have thus far, and in preparing the village for how it's going to manage and go forward during this unprecedented event. And I applaud them for it and for all the hard work they've done thus far. Thank you for not only outlining it in a well-presented way, but also for discerning the information that's coming quickly on a regular basis. I'm sure you're spending a lot of time in front of your computers breaking it down and seeing which part is regards to us and what other is in charge of somebody else. So thank you for all that work. Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Takes care of all items on tonight's agenda under new business. That takes care of all items on tonight's agenda. Right now, we have the next regular scheduled meeting of the Village Board for Monday, April 6th at 7 p.m. Information will come on how that will occur and where that will occur and if that will occur. So please stay tuned to see how our next Village Board meeting will occur. Anything else? Then we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you all for watching. Have a good night.